Hello and welcome to Counterculture. Now, obviously you know that a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago now, we founded saveourstatues.org.uk, and we said at the time that we would come back with updates on what's going on. Of course, this issue, far from going away, seems actually to be gathering pace for many people, and we are so pleased with the number of people who have shown their support. So today we're going to be talking about the various issues that have come up over the past couple of weeks. I'm joined, therefore, by the General Secretary of Save Our Statues, Richard Bingley, who's joining us from southwest England, Emma Webb from Save Our Statues, Robert Poll, who runs the Save Our Statues Twitter campaign, and Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, historian and also from Save Our Statues. First of all, I wonder if we could start by talking about quite an important date that's coming up, Emma. If you could just fill us in about that.
Yeah, so on the 30th of September, so we've only got 5 days left for this, that's the deadline for submissions to the Rhodes Commission inquiry.
Rhodes.
Yes, so Oriel College are deciding whether or not to keep the Rhodes statue, what to do about it. They've put together a commission, and the submissions, it's open for the public, so they want expert advice or anyone from the public to express their views on this and to explain why they should keep it or what they should do with that statue. So this is the last call for that evidence. It's on the 30th of September,
which is Wednesday.
Yes, yeah.
So we're going out on Sunday. This is Sunday now. So you've got a few days. How do people do this, Emma?
So we can possibly put the link in the description of the video, but it's available if you Google it. It's on the Oriel College website, and there's an email address that you can submit your evidence to. And this is, the net will have been cast already, so I imagine they'll have invited particular people to give their evidence, but it's important that the public realise that they can have a word in this, that this isn't just about Oriel, it's not just about Oxford, this is about our heritage and the principle of not removing statues like Rhodes from buildings like Oriel College.
That's the point, isn't it, really, Rafe? It's the principle involved, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's the principle. And also people have to realise, ignore the Twitterati, ignore what they see in social media and even in the mainstream media. The majority of Britons are opposed to all of this. Always remember G.K. Chesterton, for we are the people of England who have not spoken yet. And every poll that I've seen recently, both here and in America, is showing a turning of the tide against Black Lives Matter as people become more aware of what's behind it. And people really need to say, what real harm is caused by a statue that people have walked past for decades without coming to any mental grievance whatsoever? Mm-hmm. So really, everyone must get behind this and do what they can to gather support amongst their friends, email in and support this.
So basically Wednesday the 30th of September, that's when submissions must end, and we want as many as possible,
and
don't we?
It's really important that people do this, because if you, and I'll read this out to you, if you just look at some of the people who are assessing the evidence, one of the ladies on this commission, it describes in her bio that her interests focus on, and quote, collaborative praxis, repatriation and redress, and implementing decoloniality through socially engaged practice. These are the sorts of people that we're dealing with.
I bet she's fun at parties.
You wouldn't want to go for a drink with her.
Richard, you're sort of like in the part of the country where you are speaking from, that there has been a lot, hasn't there, of controversy with various statues. I'm thinking particularly of, Francis Drake and other statues in that part of the country. That is sort of, what is the situation there with people's feelings about this? Have they died down, do you think, or not?
Well, I think the issue has died down slightly because obviously sort of the re-emergence of coronavirus threats and risks. But on the whole, we seem to be dealing with sort of a binary system of risk here, around the statues. You have clearly strong forces against the statues in places like Oxford, Cambridge, London, and some of the university cities. And then, as Rafe says, there's kind of the real England that has got absolutely no problem whatsoever with statues and sort of cultural heritage, and kind of takes it for granted, and we've kind of got this out of our system over the last 200 years since we abolished slavery. It's not as if we've started analysing the ethics of it this year. So, but the reality is that as we arrive at local elections potentially next May, that in those elections the Conservative Party won't do very well, and that there'll be even more sort of left-leaning administrations, and so we've got these reviews to fight that sort of Emma's talking about, but and that does mean people sort of writing into the council leader and making their opinions very, very robust and making them accessible to the councils. Don't just write to us, please write to your council leaders. But after May, I think we're going to have a second battlefront, frankly, with the new councils that might some of the councils might not be as sympathetic. And that's not to say that all the Conservative councillors are sympathetic and all the others aren't. We're seeing huge support from all ranges of councillors, and it just happens that mostly it's been so far that the Conservative councillors have tried to defend this stuff, whilst the others have put pressure on to remove some of the statues.
You have had a lot of people contacting you, have you not, wanting to help, volunteers. This is really encouraging, isn't it?
It's fantastic news. We had the slight setback with the new coronavirus regulations, so apologies. Where we were wanting to do training days and have regional coordinators go out and do regional events, we've obviously had to put that on hold so that we are legally compliant and we don't slip up that way. But we have had hundreds of emails in, and please do email us if you want to help, to contact@saveourstatues.org.uk. You can go onto the website saveourstatues.org.uk and contact any one of us through the email there, and I promise you we will get back to you. It's just the sheer volume. We're all volunteers, and getting back has been a bit of an issue, particularly in sort of the BBC prom season and with all these reviews going on.
Yeah, there's still 130 reviews, aren't there, going on? Robert, there's a couple of interesting things. There was some good news, was there not, from Dundee?
Dundee was one example, rare example we've had recently of a council turning around and saying, we're not going to review any statues or street names because, and the quote was, I think there's no evidence of any overwhelming desire from the people of Dundee to do that. Which I think we all know is really true around the country. That's the reality. Exactly. They talked about confronting their legacy of slavery in different ways with an exhibition and some other programmes, which I'm sure most people wouldn't really have a huge problem with to an extent. But the fact that they realised, I think, the real public view on statues is a positive sign. Yeah, as you say, there's still 130 councils out there, most of which are Labour councils, which are reviewing their statues. So the issue hasn't gone away, but it was nice to see one example of sanity.
Speaking of the opposite, if you like, insanity, you came up with some statistics recently. You basically went into, was it a public consultation, and you were looking at the people. Can you just tell us what that was? This was about the number of people who'd got in touch in support of removal or whatever of statues.
Yes, this is a particular petition, and we've said before how petitions are being used, weaponised really, particularly by the other side who want to get rid of statues. Up and down the country, they're using these petitions to rest their case on in terms of showing support. And also to prompt and inform council debates, the ones we were just talking about. That's kicking them off, these petitions. Normally you can't really see who signed the petitions or any data about it, but I noticed this one that was about the Picton Monument in Carmarthenshire. It was on a different petition site that does show you the place, the location of who signed it, a field that they fill in, so it's accurate. And there were 20,000 names on this petition, which is a number that's been bandied around a bit by councillors in Carmarthenshire and the media. Certainly it's been picked up. A huge demand to remove this monument, apparently. But when I basically scrolled through those 20,000 names that were on this website, which was a fun evening, and then put it all into a spreadsheet to find out where they came from, and of the 20,000, only 3,897 were based in the UK, let alone Carmarthenshire or Wales, just the UK. Over half were from America, And
so how many would that be in thousands then?
It was about 11,000, I think, from America.
Really, from America?
Yes. So it's clearly something that's hijacked and it's sent by activists who don't really understand. You could see some of the comments as well. They didn't understand what this was about. Some of the comments were about Trump and things, nothing to do with Carmarthen. But there's no reason why this particular petition would be any different to any of the others, really. The only difference was we could see this information for this one. So I think that's indicative of one of the problems here. Questions need to be asked about how they're given so much credibility by councils and the media as well. And I think it makes clear that no action should really be taken without a properly organised local referendum.
How can they actually even justify that? I mean, how, if that is the case, it wasn't obviously 50% from America, but then a lot of other countries too. How can that be stopped? I mean, how actually do you stop that happening? Or indeed, how do you stop people registering 2 or 3 times?
Well, yeah, I don't think you can. It's just one of the limitations of petitions. I think they have to be taken less seriously. As I say, it needs to be replaced by a more organised process, or to get public opinion, even an opinion poll perhaps, or a referendum. But petitions have to be taken with a pinch of salt, definitely.
Richard, you mentioned about the local elections next year. I mean, the thing is that we've said before, but I think it's worth saying again, that the strange thing is that for this issue, this is a very local issue, isn't it? I mean, this is not, this is, in some ways, the elections fit what we're talking about very well, don't they?
Absolutely. I think for years, it's been kind of taught in schools and taught on politics classes that councils don't really matter that much, ultimately the politics of councils. But what we're seeing here is actually the real epicenter of decision making is in the council cabinet and with those council leaders. And it will be true that those council leaders that are leaders from next May and June, if the local elections happen then, will be the people making decisions about this. They will either be the people who have to knock down the statues because these reviews have told them to, or they will be the people reviewing statues in councils that have delayed the decision-making process. So, it's not so much a case on this one of writing to your member of parliament. It's not like Brexit or anything like that. It's very, very localised, and it throws into question the issue that you raised, Peter, last week about Sadiq Khan in City Hall. When actually it's councils that decide mainly on the cultural furniture, the street furniture. What right does a mayor have, a mayor of London, to start removing statues and memorials that are sat for hundreds of years on the streets of London, and that many, many councillors and many, many committees have analysed and reanalysed and given their permission to? What right does this man have?
He doesn't have any right, really, does he, Rafe?
No right at all. And it seems to me that the only way you can ever really have any mandate to do so is by having a local referendum. If you're having these gerrymandered polls where 17,000 people aren't actually living in the United Kingdom, this is simply a question of clicking on a Facebook post and signing, and I imagine 0.01% have any clue about Picton, could pinpoint it on a map and have any idea about the wider issues at play here. So there needs to be, whether it's done by convention or regulation or law, I don't know how it will be affected, but councils need to actually have a process of public consultation. I mean, I would love to see, for example, at the May elections, as having a referendum there at that same time as you're voting for your councillor. There you have this, would you want to have this statue, or do you believe in the procedure for having statues removed? That would be a great time to do it. I don't know whether there's any precedent in local elections of having a referendum attached to the election of your local councillors, but that would be a great opportunity.
I think it's not unlike the American elections, where they have various propositions, don't they, attached to their local elections. It's very. Richard mentioned there Sadiq Khan last week. I mean, I asked him about the London Commission for Diversity in the Public Realm. It caused a bit of a fuss, actually. In fact, it went absolutely viral. But I think what's interesting there was, in fact, they were spinning it as a very kind of sort of very beneficial thing, a very, very optimistic, very positive thing. This is about new, diverse people having their statues put up. But really, Emma, it actually is really about looking backwards and revising and removal, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's been quite clear from the get-go that this is about rewriting our history, and you could just tell from not only Sadiq Khan's response to your question, but then also the debacle that followed, that the profound arrogance of these people, and the fact that, and you know, we've seen this recently with the National Trust and their whole report that they'd done on our national architectural historical treasures, that our national treasures, because again, this is not just about London, as Oriel is not just about Oxford. They're in the hands of people who we really can't trust to take care of them, and I think that was what you really showed with Sadiq Khan's response, the arrogance that they think that this is something that they have a right to do, when I think the majority of people in this country would say they certainly don't have a right.
Judging by the response, they certainly don't go along with them. I mean, it's been extraordinary. But what we'll do, we'll put the various links we've talked about today, just below this video. That's the one about Cecil Rhodes, and also the one Richard mentioned for getting in touch as well, to saveourstatues.org.uk. Thanks very much. Thanks, Richard, for joining us. Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Rafe. Do join the campaign, won't you? Do join and support us, or become a member, and we will play you out as with a little reminder of what happened in City Hall last week. So take care and see you next time. Thank you. What I do feel very passionate about is somebody basically coming in and essentially saying, I am going to, or this commission is going to start, as you put it, deciding which legacies should be celebrated and which shouldn't be. No one has the right to do that. And I think it is extraordinary at a time when this city is facing almost extinction level event economically, largely as well down to many of the things you've done, such as congestion charge and all of that, that actually now you start attacking its heritage. And the councils that you refer to are Labour ones, 130 of them up and down the country. We all know, do we not, Mr. Mayor, that your party doesn't really like patriotism, doesn't really like Britain very much. All I can say is that the one consolation is that it's very unlikely that anyone's going to be putting up a statue to you.